Good morning. Welcome to Shawnee Mission Unitarian Universalist Church. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. We are so happy that you've chosen this sanctuary, that you're here is something to celebrate. We extend an especially warm welcome to our visitors. We'll be waiting to chat with you at the welcome desk after service. Remember, we were all newcomers once. And if you're joining us online, please say hi in the chat. We now invite everyone to rise and greet one another.
Good morning. So our guest speaker that was originally scheduled to lead worship for us this morning tested positive for COVID yesterday. So it's okay, she's feeling good. She's feeling great. So our service today will be shifting into a new direction thanks to the leadership of our staff, and a very special thank you to Nayalisa Cuevas. For stepping up to lead our worship today at the very last minute. Okay, so next week is our water communion, our annual gathering in which you are invited to bring a little bit of water from home, from your travels, to mix with the waters of others. We will have pitchers and ladles for those who didn't bring water to participate in the ritual. You all will be invited to come forward here to pour or ladle water, and then we will complete the ritual by venturing out to our beautiful prairie and pouring our water on the earth. Okay, we now have a message about SMUUCh. Now, SMUUCh was amazing last year. It was so fun. I had such a good time. And we need people to show up and lead some workshops for our littles, our middles, and our bigs. So if you are interested in connecting about doing a workshop, just connect with me. It's going to be on Sunday, September 21st. We will have many more announcements about that. But workshop signups are organized on a first come, first served basis, and we're looking for creative workshops that will kind of connect any group. Any age group. Sorry. All right, next, I have 500 announcements today, y'all. I'm sorry. This year, our high school youth will embark on the coming of age journey, exploring their values, spiritual beliefs, and unique voices. This program is deeply meaningful for both our teens and our congregation, and we look forward to your support. Parents and teens are invited to an information session about this and all youth programming on September 14th during the service after the time for all ages in the youth group room. Kevin Roberts, could you come up for your announcement? No, you come do your rest of your announcement. Help him out, y'all. Give him a little bit of encouragement.
Good morning, everyone. This will be the only time they allow me on the stage this year, so you'll milk it. Friday, for all the high school and middle school teens, we're going to have our kickoff party. The church year is starting, super exciting about that. Hope everyone can make it. And like Micah just said, on the 14th, after when all the kids leave, any parents of high school kids with their teen are welcome to come join me in the youth group room, and we're going to talk about everything that we're going to do this year. This is my last official year on staff, so we're going to make sure that it's meaningful for everybody. So thank you. Looking forward to this year.
Fisk, you have an announcement?
Good morning, everyone. Next Sunday, we're doing a potluck after service, and there was a sign-up thing in Realm, but I guess it's fairly challenging because at this point, we have had some sign-ups, so thank you if you signed up. But we're in kind of like a loaves and fishes scenario here where we get a miracle to happen and so that we can feed more people. So if you can get into Realm and sign up for it in Realm, that's fine. If you can't, just send me an email, and I'll get those details in there. And whatever we have, it will be sufficient for our potluck next Sunday. So my email isn't in that particular announcement, but it's in the Youthiest announcement, and you can find it in the Church Weekly email if you don't already know my email. So at any rate, if you would like to sign up and bring something next Sunday for the potluck, then you can contribute to our miracle after church next Sunday. Thank you.
Come, let us worship together. Please rise as you are willing and able for hymn number 300 in the gray hymnal, With Heart and Mind.
Silent place transcend to make our purpose understood. A mortal search for mortal good, a firm commitment to the goal of justice, freedom, peace for all. A mind that's free to seek the truth, a mind that's free in age and youth, to choose a path no threat impedes, wherever light and conscience leads. Our martyrs died so we could be a church where every mind is free. A heart that's kind, a heart to search, makes of the spirit of our church, where we can grow and each one's gift is sanctified and spirits lift, where every door is open wide for all who choose to step inside.
As Cleo comes forward to light our chalice, we invite you to join us as we recite our covenant. Let us affirm that love is the doctrine of this church, the quest for truth is its sacrifice, knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with one another.
May I have all the children? Oh my gosh, you're so fast. Hey, friends. So good to see you. I'm so happy to see some people I haven't seen in a minute. Nice job. Hello, hello. Okay, so today we're going to talk about something that may not seem like a big deal, but it's kind of a big deal, but maybe it's not. I don't really know, but you can decide. Okay? So we're going to read a story called A Kingdom Lost for a Drop of Honey. And it's a tale of greed, consequence, and a reminder that even the smallest things can change everything. So what would you say if I told you that a single drop of honey could ruin an entire kingdom? What'd you say? Do you believe me? Do you think that's possible? Maybe in fairy tales? Yeah, okay, I love that. So have you ever seen something small that causes a big problem? Yes, Lucas. Lice. 100%, 100%. This, like, you can't even see, right? So tiny. No, that's a good one. That was a good one. Nina? A match. Yes. Yes, friend. Spiky what? Ooh, broken glass? Yes, yes. Wasps. Ugh. Yes. What about you? Oops. Oh no, my goodness, that's crazy. Yes. Mosquitoes. Yeah, no, those are all horrible. Okay, you can put your hands down. You guys have clearly seen very small things causing a very big problem. Okay, so what do you think a drop of honey could do to a kingdom? A drop of honey, one drop. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so bees would ruin everything. They might come after the honey. Absolutely. Yes. Ooh, it might be one gigantic drop, and then it spreads and makes everything sticky and gross. I get that. Okay, so let's sit back and listen to this amazing tale. Once upon a time, a queen sat on her balcony eating rice cakes and honey with her chief advisor, and as they ate, they gazed down at the busy street below. The queen pointed to something in the distance, and as she did, a drop of honey from her rice cake landed on the balcony railing. "My queen, you have spilled a drop of honey," observed the advisor. "Shall I call the housekeeper to come and clean it up?" But the queen just laughed. A little drop of honey is, now I need everyone's help with this. Every time I say pause, I'll just say pause. After I say pause, we will all shout together, "Not my problem." Not my problem. All right, so I'm gonna start from where the queen laughed. But the queen laughed. A little drop of honey is, pause. Not my problem. Someone will clean it later. So they went on eating and talking as the drop of honey warmed in the sun and slowly began to drip down the side of the railing until it landed in the street with a plop. Ooh. "Your Highness," the advisor said, "that drop of honey has now fallen into the street where it's attracting flies. Shouldn't we have someone come and clean it up?" But again, the queen yawned lazily and replied, "A little drop of honey and a few flies are, pause. Not my problem. Someone will deal with it later." So soon a lizard darted out from underneath the palace wall and began to catch the flies on her tongue. Aw, circle of life. Then a cat sprang from the baker shop and began to bat the lizard back and forth like a toy. Just then, a dog charged out from the butcher shop and began to bite the cat on the neck. I know, it's crazy. "Your Highness," the advisor implored, "now the flies have attracted a lizard, which attracted a cat, which is now being attacked by a dog. Shouldn't we call someone to stop the fight?" But the queen only stretched and shook her head at the advisor. "Won't you relax? A silly animal fight is, pause. Not my problem. Someone else will surely see to it." In fact, the baker did see to it. She saw the dog attacking her cat and ran out with her rolling pin and began to hit the dog. And then the butcher heard his dog howling and ran out with his broom and began to hit the cat. Soon, the butcher and the baker were hitting each other. Then neighboring shopkeepers began to take sides, joining in the fight. And then some soldiers came along, but only some knew the butcher and some knew the baker. So then the soldiers too took sides, and the battle grew, and it grew, and it grew until a great battle waged in the streets. People were throwing rocks through windows and tipping over vendor carts. Someone picked up a torch from the wall and hurled it through a window. Fires raged, and eventually they spread to the palace. The next thing they knew, the queen and her advisor were being escorted down a ladder from the balcony in the streets below because the palace itself was in flames. Later that day, when the fire had died out, the queen and her advisor surveyed the ruins of their land, and suddenly the queen stopped in the street underneath where her balcony had been. She looked. "Honey," she said, remembering. "I guess I should have cleaned up that drop of honey in the first place. Now my whole kingdom has been lost because of it." And then that was the last day that the queen ever said, "Pause." So, here's what I need for you to do. I need for you to fully understand that very small acts can cause very big reactions. They can cause problems, they can cause joy. So what small thing could you do to make a big impact in your community? Thank you, Daniel.
Spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Each month, we as a community take time to reflect on a theme. The children do this in their classes, and we do it here in worship and in small groups. This month, the theme is engaging with conflict. When I think about what I've learned from thinking about navigating conflict, I think about my friend Michael, who I've known for 20 years. There is no one I'm more fond of that can push my buttons in quite the same way. I met him freshman year of college. He lived on the 3rd floor of our dorm, but he kept coming up to the 7th where I lived, drawn by a high school friend who lived 2 doors down and a girl down the hall that he had a crush on. He never got a date with her. But Michael inserted himself into our lives with the unapologetic confidence of a young man who thought everyone loved him. The truth is, at that age, most people didn't like Michael. He was insufferable, egotistical, and frankly, could be annoying. He carried his guitar everywhere, constantly playing Dave Matthews Band songs. He ate the last of your snacks without hesitation and wore shirts that read 2 + 2 = 5 with an asterisk for extremely large values of 2. His favorite topic? Bragging about digging up real dinosaur bones in Wyoming. And he always thought he was right. But Michael was exactly the kind of friend I needed at that point in my life. I was also known to annoy people when I was 18. I'd spent my high school years in competitive debate, waking up at 5 a.m. on Saturdays to argue with other teenagers about policy propositions. I missed having someone to spar with intellectually, and Michael was eager for the challenge. He loved to argue and was frequently wrong, in my opinion, but never took it personally when I called him out. In fact, he enjoyed it as much as I did. I spent a lot of time with Michael that year, and we became great friends. He introduced me to his best friend from high school, who I ended up marrying. Since then, we've remained close, even though we haven't lived in the same state since college. We've spent Thanksgivings together. You could almost say we're family. But our friendship almost ended over a game of apples to apples. Apples to apples is a simple game of comparisons. A player draws a green card with an adjective or a concept, and everyone else picks a red card with a noun or a phrase that they think matches it best. The person who played the green card decides whose contribution is the best match, and creative and humorous pairings always win. Inside jokes or awareness of the judge's sense of humor give you an edge. One night, Michael's girlfriend was the judge. The green card was masculinity. Michael, the paleontologist who grew up dreaming of a life of discovery and adventure, was certain he'd win when he played Indiana Jones. But I had played the Gulf War. There was nothing that more viscerally exemplified masculinity than war, especially the political narratives around the Iraq War. I could have argued the topic at length. I'd actually written a paper about it for a women's studies class. His girlfriend declared me the winner, and oh, how that night lived on in the lore of our friendship. It became an inside joke, a time when I officially won an argument with him. Most of our debates ended in a good-natured draw, no one definitively triumphant. But the framework of the apples-to-apples game and his girlfriend as the judge meant there could be no dispute. I'd won. Michael became something of an internet personality, famous in a particular type of Burning Man intellectual, scientific, techno-futurist circle. Years later, in what was an extension of that joke, he decided to bring back that question and let the mostly male audience he had cultivated be the final arbiter of the question, which better exemplifies masculinity, Indiana Jones or the Gulf War? If you spent any time in the comment sections on social media, you can imagine what happened. You'd have thought that I'd said Han Solo was less masculine than the Gulf War by how they eviscerated me for daring to challenge Michael. Even worse was what they said about Michael's girlfriend, who declared me the winner. It was the definition of toxic masculinity. The story of Indiana Jones is steeped in ableism, sexism, and colonialism, definitely the worst elements of masculinity. But that was not what I thought these semi-intellectual men who revered Michael and thus defended him saw. The Gulf War wasn't just a popular movie series that didn't age particularly well. It was a complex interplay between military culture, gender norms, and veteran help that caused real harm. But the point seemed to be that I couldn't just take the joke. I was furious. Michael shut down the thread and apologized, but my anger went deeper than just those internet trolls, or my desire to be right, to win the argument. Really, I'd been resentful since college, when he'd always held his scientific knowledge as more worthwhile than my work in liberal arts, studying the intersection of political science, gender studies, and cultural anthropology. That long-running joke over the apples-to-apples game was more than about his silly fan obsession versus a theme of my intense academic study, and his was somehow better and more important. My anger was about how I felt he thought that my choice to become a public librarian was somehow less intellectually rigorous than running a podcast. I was really mad because I was worried that Michael didn't think I was as smart as he was, that he no longer found our conversations intellectually stimulating now that he worked at one of the most prestigious independent research institutes in complex system sciences. Maybe worse, my competitiveness and the issues I cared about made me a real drag. But when we finally talked it through, I realized something surprising. That joke about the apples-to-apples game had been a thorn in his side for all these years, too. It was a symbol of a disconnect in his relationship with his girlfriend and made him question their intimacy. And when we dug a little deeper, he worried that, like one of his heroes, and like the Gulf War, he exemplified the worst parts of toxic masculinity rather than their ideal. Our conflict was really just the manifestation of our own insecurities. The real issue wasn't that we both wanted to win the argument. It was about proving our worth. The conversation was a turning point in the great masculinity debate, Indiana Jones versus the Gulf War. It made me realize how many of my conflicts with others stemmed from my own insecurities, and likely theirs too. Now, when I feel anger or frustration, I dig deeper and look for my own self-doubt. When I'm incredibly annoyed by someone for no obvious reason, I look for what I see in them that I fear is also present in my worst self. Our reactions to others often reveal unresolved fears or insecurities within us. For instance, if someone constantly seeks attention in group settings, it might frustrate us because we feel uneasy with self-promotion or fear being overlooked. This could reveal a deep desire for recognition or a lack of confidence in our own worth. When we react strongly to someone's confidence or success, or if their achievements make us feel uncomfortable, it might point to our own feelings of inadequacy. By examining these reactions and exploring their roots, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and hopefully avoid a lot of conflict.
We come to this place to see and to be seen, to teach and be taught, to hear and to be heard. Now reach over and nudge the person sitting next to you. We are here together, gathered in peace and authenticity and intention. We also come to this place to share our joys and sorrows. If you have a rare joy or a profound sorrow, please come forward and briefly share in 2 to 3 sentences and light a candle.
Hello, I'm Wesley. My wife was in surgery again and is in recovery. Also, I was finally able to find another job instead of being stuck in security for as long as I have since I came back from Iraq. Finally, I was able to work in a hospital, so.
My name is Michael Warner. I have a couple of candles I'd like to light. This first candle is a light of hope. I started group therapy this last week, and it's a real eye-opener. And if there's anyone out there struggling, who want to network, who want to relate to others who are going through similar experiences, I strongly recommend it. I'd like to light a second candle of joy. I don't know for those of you who were here 5 years ago or remember that my 2-year-old son had a tumor in his cerebellum that was removed, and I still have a lot of gratitude towards all of you who helped us through that experience. This last week, he celebrated 5 years tumor-free. He's still has some struggles, but his kindness and grit have continued to be inspirational, and he's a great example for his students, and he was awarded student leader despite all of his struggles.
I'm Kay Azar, and the joy this weekend of having family visit leads to the sorrow of it's Palestinian family and the topic of Gaza and the rest of the West Bank all weekend. Here's to the press, to the people of Gaza, the children.
Hi, I'm Twyla Preston. I am one of the members of the, not the lighting committee, the Safety and Security Committee, and I'm lighting this candle in sadness about the killing in Minneapolis this last week at the Ascension Church. So our safety policy is huge. It was sent out about a year or so ago. I encourage you guys all to read it again. It's long, it's boring, but even if you just read the captions isn't the right word. Headers, I don't know. I can't think of the word. This is getting old. I can't think of words anymore, but that would be helpful. And the thing that shocked me is the guy didn't even get into the church. He shot through the windows. Think about this facility. We love our windows, but we've got to do something.
And I light the remaining candles for all the joys and sorrows that remain in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. Please sing with us in song. Let us take a moment to come fully into this place. Put your feet flat on the floor and take a deep breath. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable and relax into your chair. Allow your breathing to deepen beautifully. Wiggle your jaw and melt. Notice an area that is tense or tight and embrace it and say, relax. It's okay to relax. And let the bustle of getting here melt away and come into this space of holiness. And today we think of those in Minnesota who are suffering the loss of their loved ones, the loss of safety, the loss of child innocence, and those in Gaza who continue to suffer under the weight of violence and hate. And now join or sit as we sing our meditative hymn number 1023, Building Bridges.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and reach out our visions,
We're building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Prodigal Daughter by Erica L. Sanchez. Every day is yesterday, and like the loneliness of water, I have always existed. My body brackets a quiver in a world that doesn't love us. Despite the tyrants, the I is forever insatiable. Alone in Spain once, I ran out of money and for days ate nothing but eggs. The bad life, my mother would say, and yet I was resplendent, found a music that confronted the self with the self. I have always found ways to violate my own body. Cocaine until the heart thickened, wasteful, prodigal, a slut to my whims, and my grandmother so poor she couldn't feed her chickens. Today and yesterday and tomorrow and the day after, the hour's vicious, the hour's vicious. This is what it's come to. A Mexican cackles next door, and what's more stunning, the lesson is beautiful, replicates itself. And you, my speck, a replication of the beloved. Forgive me, I don't know the science of it, only the smell of meat that sends me gagging to the toilet. How can I do this? How can I ask you to be kind in a world that isn't?
Well, good morning. It is a joy to be with you this morning, even under late notice. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Naya, and again, it's a joy to be with you. If you don't know, I am from Chicago, born and raised. I love the smell of a good old hot dog with mustard, grilled onions, relish, a tomato, a good-sized pickle, and, of course, no ketchup. And the summertime drives downtown where you hear the sound of people playing beach volleyball, bikers yelling at pedestrians saying, "On your left!" Runners training for the Chicago Marathon that happens every October while taking in one of the most beautiful skylines. Yet at 25, I finished seminary and made my way here to Kansas City. Now, I soon was surprised as I drove into Kansas City and saw the skyline. It is no Chicago. Am I right? Yeah. Yet, my wife and I always seem to engage in conflict about what is a real city. I always say there's just a certain way of life and a way that you look at the world growing up in a big city. Life is just different in Chicago. The struggle is different. The things you have to care about are a little different. And you just learn to live a life that is just not the same in smaller towns. Yet she loves to tell me that she grew up in Kansas City, Kansas, and that Kansas City is just as much as a city as Chicago is. And y'all, I vehemently disagree. And yet, we often just get to a place of agreeing to disagree. Because no matter how you look at it, I will never agree to the fact that life in Kansas City could ever compare to life in Chicago. And while this is a silly conflict, I do think it points to something bigger. Most of us have heard the saying, let's just agree to disagree. But what happens if someone is asking you to agree to disagree on issues of life and death? Or to agree to disagree on someone's humanity or worthiness? It becomes more complex, doesn't it? We know that conflict is a part of life and that we all engage in it or have the opportunity to lean into it. But what happens when conflict feels unsolvable? What happens when it feels like there is no resolve? And maybe some of you are feeling that right now, or have felt it this past week, or maybe this past month, or maybe within this past year. In fact, it kind of seems like our current moment is in a major conflict that feels unsolvable. because every day we're hearing of genocide happening in Gaza, or ICE raiding our very own neighborhoods, or policies that are passed that make it harder for those on the margins to access the care that they need, or maybe it's a loved one who just doesn't seem to get it no matter how hard you try. So what do we do? What do we do when conflict feels unsolvable? Well, first, we take the time to know our values. We commit to being grounded in what we stand for. I don't know if any of you follow tennis, but the US Open is happening. And just for the record, I do not follow tennis closely at all, but I try to stay engaged in what's happening in our country and other parts of the world. And sometimes that leads me to places I'd rather not be, but I try. And this week, I came across tennis player Taylor Townsend, who is a black woman tennis player here in the United States. And I've never heard of her until this week because she was mentioned in multiple news streams because of a conflict that occurred between her and Yelena Ostapenko, who is from Latvia, a country in Northern Europe. And the conflict started because Yelena felt that Taylor was not following the rules of tennis. More specifically, an unwritten rule that if you're helped by a net cord, you are to apologize for that. Again, I have no idea what a net cord is. I couldn't tell you the rules of tennis. However, it was a big deal to her. So much so that after Taylor beat her, they engaged in a heated conversation where Yelena stated that Taylor had no class and no education. And I heard it in your voices, right? Most of us cringe at that because we know the historical depth and pain those comments carry when targeted towards a black woman. And some of us know the history of this country that assumes that black people are less than and they have no access to education or basic human rights. And yet here is a European woman heated in a loss, spewing hatred. And you know what happened? She apologized, not to Taylor, but she apologized publicly for what she said and stated that she meant that she didn't have any tennis education. Most of us probably don't buy that, which is yes, but what's interesting is that sometimes when we are in heated moments or in heated conflicts, we tend to act in ways that are contradictory to our values. And in the heat of the moment, when we're angry or feeling pressured, we often act in a way that tells us in that moment what we value. And in that moment, Yelena valued her superiority, her knowledge of tennis, to make Taylor feel inferior and less than. But what I wonder is if I were to sit with Yelena, would her values align with her actions? And friends, as a therapist, and I know there's other fellow therapists in the room, we often sit with people who live in opposition of what they believe they value, right? And it often leads to their destruction. I mean, they come in and they're telling me they want to be something, but their actions don't align with what they're aspiring to be. And that's usually the moment of great change. Because it's easy to say you value integrity, but harder to live it when your job is on the line. Or it's easy to say we value inclusion until it means that we're no longer centering the systems that have worked for the majority. So, when conflict feels unsolvable, stop and consider your values. What about this conflict feels unsolvable for you? Is it in opposition to what you value? Are you engaging in this conflict in a way that contradicts what you stand for? Consider your values. And second, when conflict feels unsolvable, stop blaming. We move away from blame and towards responsibility. I work at the Boys and Girls Club of Lawrence, and part of my work is being in charge of the social emotional learning department. And in the summers, we offer all-day programming, kind of like a summer camp. And you can probably imagine the behaviors that occur with children being in one place from 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. And usually when I go to programming, I'm looked to help handle kids' behaviors, because again, you can imagine the plethora of things that we encounter. And one day, there was this third grader who was just so angry and was having a meltdown. And I know this third grader, we're like best friends. I see her a lot. I know kind of what she's about. And so I kind of do what I always do. I went on a walk with her and kind of got her mind off of what she was frustrated on and asked her how her day was and what she had for lunch. And she started telling me all these things. And as she started to calm down, I asked her what was causing her to be so frustrated. And she tells me that her group leader told her to clean up her area. Confused, I asked her, okay, what about that was so frustrating? And she mentioned how he said it twice to her. And mind you, he also told the rest of the class to clean up their area, but how dare he ask her to clean up her area twice? And she goes on to say how that was so rude of him, and as a result, she screamed and ran out of her classroom when she knows she's not supposed to do. And I remember trying to hold in my laughter, you can probably imagine, because she's very animated as she's telling me this story. And I remember I got down to her height, I looked her in the eye, and I said, it's okay to get angry and frustrated when we feel like people are telling us over and over to clean up after ourselves. But it's no one else's fault but ours when we get in trouble for yelling and screaming at others just because we didn't like what they had to say. And she kind of moves her head down and is kind of going, okay, I understand. And we talked about other ways we can express our anger rather than yelling and running away, right? But friends, don't we do this sometimes, right? When the conflict we engage in isn't started by us, we didn't bring the problem, but then we start to get dysregulated and act in ways that make us just as responsible as the person who started it. And we see this happening all the time in our current moment. Conflicts involving screaming matches, blaming each other for how things are, which often leads to no one taking responsibility for their part in it. And it's easy, right, to blame this administration for the way things are in our country, and rightfully so. But often that causes us not to act because the responsibility of trying to be a change agent is hard. It's easy to focus on how the other person or the other party is wrong, because then we don't have to sit with ourselves and maybe look at the ways that we might have contributed. But so many of those who led the way to freedom didn't sit in blame even when they could have. Because what they understood is that blame stops us from dreaming of a better world. It stops us from calling people to something greater and to something higher. And ultimately, it stops us from action. And we know that those that have came before us that led the way to freedom, ultimately it led them to their death. But friends, not every act of resistance results in death. But every act of resistance does involve a sacrifice. And what do you sacrifice when all you do is blame? So friends, we consider our values, and we stop blaming and ask ourselves, what is our responsibility? And lastly, we live into the tension. And we find wisdom by walking within the tension. Because I know maybe some of you, just like me, after you've considered your values, right, and you stopped blaming, the conflict still isn't solved, right? It still feels unsolvable, Naya. And the truth is that life is often lived in the tension, right? Sometimes we don't allow ourselves to sit in the uncomfortability because we have learned somehow that tension or discomfort equals danger. And in our current moment, we've gotten used to consuming information or being relieved of our discomfort by watching 1-minute videos or reels. Anybody else? Yes? All right. And we're constantly being offered to avoid and distract and distance ourselves from the discomfort that comes with actually sitting with ourselves and getting to know ourselves. In fact, our 14-year-old has had a pretty hard life up until this point, and she often comes to us and tells us and asks us, what am I supposed to do? I just keep overthinking, and I don't know. And we often ask her, have you put your phone down for just 2 minutes and sat with yourself? That's like a death sentence. It is like, no. And she goes, but I don't know what's wrong. And we often say, have you sat with yourself? Have you thought about the feelings and the emotions and the things that you're trying to avoid? Have you sat in that tension? Because, friends, life is usually lived there. It's the tension of not agreeing with someone's political views, yet still seeing their humanity. It's establishing boundaries while keeping an open heart to love. It's knowing what stores drop their DEI policies, yet not being able to afford to shop anywhere else. It's keeping that family member or loved one at a distance, yet still open to their change. It's wanting your children to grow up and be independent, yet missing them when they do so. As Molly read Erica Sanchez's poem, Prodigal Daughter, it was full of tension. It was full of that liminal space that we all live in. And she talked about the bad days and the good days, yet there was one line that struck me. Because she asks, how can I ask you to be kind in a world that isn't? In a world where the odds are stacked against you, when life has served you more oppression than freedom, when you see every day how people who look like you deserve to be deported or raided by ICE, when family members and loved ones are voting for policies that directly attack who you are, when the conflict you engage in gets bigger and bigger, kindness is the last thing anyone wants to give. And yet, as Adrienne Marie Brown states, I think it's healing behavior to look at something so broken and see the possibility and wholeness in it. And may it be so.
The work of the church depends on us, our generosity of time, wisdom, and financial resources. We invite you to give generously to support the ongoing work of the church. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared values. please rise as you are willing and able for our closing hymn, number 6 in the gray hymnal, Just as Long as I Have Breath.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I make my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
Let us affirm that we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
May we sit in the tension this week. Go in peace.